Welcome to Belgium. This is the Antwerp Port Epic. Here we go with the docks in Antwerp, the 5th edition. 6th edition. Oh, miscounted. 6th edition. It's a beautiful sunny day here around the 20-21 Celsius mark for a fantastic day of racing. We have both cobbles and gravel. So, what do you want more? Cobbles and gravel. 21 degrees, about 70 Fahrenheit. These are the previous 5 winners. And, well, you can see some cyclocross influence there. Guillaume van Kersburg, Mede Gent, Gianni Vermeers, Mathieu van der Poel and Florian Vermeers. Last year we had Vermeers in 1 and Vermeers in 2. And actually Thibaut Nys in 3rd. All riders with a little bit of cyclocross background. We're looking at the team of Bridge Lane. The Australians are here, just like they were in previous races. Lovely continental jersey there. The ARA Skip Capital team, been taught by Matilda Reynolds that it should be ARA and not ARA, so now we know for the future. Tour de Titema Unibet team at the start. We saw them in Veenendaal yesterday as well in the bright blue, and the Cannondale bikes in the slightly outrageous colour scheme that the team has chosen. Of course, very active on YouTube following the start of the team, and now, basically you get to see everything. Q36.5 at the start there with the South African champion, Travis Steadman. We have Dupont, Timothy Dupont there for Tartoletto Isorex. Also at the start is the team from Israel Premier Tech there. With him again, Giacomo Nisolo, a triple for the Italian. Circuit de Wallonie on Thursday, yesterday Veenendaal, and today the 3rd Lotto Cycling Cup race we have on this week. The Bolton Equities Black Spoke team, we have the boys from the Basque country as well there with Inekovic Asparen, a man that we see in many a breakaway, signing the start sheet. Only 105 riders at the start, because, well, you know, there's a lot of bike racing going on at the moment. Dries van Gestel on the podium. And lovely sunny circumstances there at the start podium in Antwerp. With Team Flanders, Baloise, 5 riders starting there. With Arno Kleijs there, and this is Bingle Wallonie-Bruxelles. The team led by former Lotto pro Oliver Kuysen. A mixed team of the development setup and the pro team for the team from Wallonia. Same goes for Groupama FDG, where we see 2 young Brits at the start line with Ben Esky and with Noah Hobbs. Good to see him. There is Ben with number 11. Good to see him. And Eddie Luitus also on the start for the team led by Jérôme Ganat. Alpecin de Koning is the World 2 team here. They're racing with Gianni Vermeers, a former winner, but also with this man, Emiel Verstringen. Also Timo Kielig is here, another cyclocross rider, as is Clinton Hermans and the mountain bike multiple world champion Samuel Gaze. This is Dries de Bont, always recognizable, the former Belgian national champion. This is Samuel Gaze. He should be well at home on the surface that we have today. Clinton Hermans, of course, also a former or still cyclocross rider. Florian Vermeers, we do see him occasionally, especially around the Christmas period in cyclocross. He is the defending champion, racing here with Jared Drisners, Jelle Hartil, Frederik Vizon, Alex Segaert, the time trial specialist, the world European champion, Jacopo Guarnieri and Ramses de Bruyne, the team there of Nicolas Maas. And this is Florian Vermeers. Of course, he is looking forward to adding a 2nd title to his palmares here in the Antwerp Port Epic. And as a team sponsored by the Lotto, you get yourself a nice lottery ball. This is the fueling plan there on the stem of one of the riders. because they have 192.9 kilometers to go. A pretty small field in a pretty demanding race with 28 kilometers of cobbles and 36 of unpaved / gravel roads. You can see there's a lot of wind there. Look at the trees here at the start in Antwerp. The start and the finish line near the Havenhuis, which is basically the port authority here in the Antwerp port, one of the biggest in Europe, just behind the one in Rotterdam, slightly to the north of where we are. So just a small peloton going through the tunnel, creating a very long pile-up of cars, actually, a traffic jam. Because, you know, in Antwerp, it's always a traffic jam, whether it's the middle of the night, whether it's Christmas, whether it's a Tuesday morning, there is always traffic in Antwerp. But here for the Liefkenshoek tunnel, they had to wait for the peloton. Recorded images of our breakaway today. We find one man from Australia there. It's Kane Richards of the ARA Skip Capital team. Two men from Denmark, Frederik Moef and Bjorn Frederik Sørensen of Colo Quick, and Jake Scott of the Bolton Equities team. Of course, with the gravel always come crashes. It's not been raining in the previous few days, so you can see the gravel is quite loose and quite dusty as well. We have a mixed terrain, we have cobbles, we have the loose gravel, we have these kind of like woodland paths as well. And Ben Askey, yeah, he was on the counter-attack here, the young Brit, but sadly had to let that counter-attack go. And that means that we are now left with a very, very select group. We do have two previous winners in that first select group, but yeah, there's only a handful of riders left at the front here in the port, in the harbour of Antwerp. As we are waiting for the live images to kick in. This is the Lotto Cycling Cup menu. We're about halfway right now. And yeah, we've got about 40 zones, 19 different ones, but some of them we do 5 times. Very happy that Ian Field knows exactly what we're doing today, because I looked at the map and it's like, no, this is not going to happen. I have no idea what we're doing. I was trying to find a pattern, and then Ian told me that there's probably no pattern at all, and somebody just threw spaghetti at the map and said, like, voila, we have a race course. 182 kilometers here. Well, my road book's at 192. It's the same old story. It's very intriguing how we end up with the kilometers in these past 3 races, but it doesn't really matter as long as the finish line is at the finish line. The Antwerp Port Epic 2023. And this man is the last remaining rider of our breakaway of 4. So it's good for him, Frederik Moef of the Colo Quick team from Denmark, that he made the live today, but only just barely, because you can see a group behind him chasing. Welcome to the Antwerp Port Epic, race number 5 in the Lotto Cycling Cup. My name is José Bain. With me today is Ian Field. And Ian, I'm happy you're with me, because I was looking at the map and we have like 40 gravel and cobbled sectors, and I tried to find a pattern, but it was absolutely no use.
It took me all morning to work out what was going on. Initially, they are numbered up to 24, and initially you presume that you're going to do them in order, a little bit like Paris-Roubaix or Trobro-Lyon. But of course, they're not. They come in a real mix of numbers. I did try and work out the route, and I think I've got it right in my head. And a long list of numbers, names, directions of winds and distances for the different cobbled and unpaved sectors to get stuck into. Still plenty of those to come. They've already done quite a few, but with 58.8 kilometres to go, the action's really going to kick off.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where we are. I think we're on our way to a 1,700-meter gravel sector called the Blokweg. That should be coming right about now. It's one of the longest sectors. There it is. I'm now so very proud of myself, Ian. There it is. It's exactly the sector that I thought that we would be doing. We've got 28 kilometres of cobbles and then 36 kilometres of unpaved road. And that can be both this very dusty gravel that we have here, very loose gravel. We've seen some crashes already, but also like these woodland parts that are more sand, mud, gravel mixtures with some grass. It's a mixed bag of things, isn't it?
It certainly is. They're just described as unpaved, and that can, like you've said, take in a whole multitude of surfaces. And we've seen already on the images before we went live some really deep sections of loose gravel and loose stones and plenty of punches so far. And because it has been so dry over the previous days, like you said, it's very dusty and very loose, especially in the corners. We've got all the following cars, all the cars ahead and the motorbikes ahead of the race, which don't particularly help, especially with kicking up of the dust, as we see the riders absolutely covered already.
Yeah, it's a pretty long race as well. I think we'll be racing close to 4.5 hours, something like that today.
Yeah, and the racing's kicked off really early, about 80 kilometres to go. Gianni Vermeersch, one of the top favourites for this race, really put the hammer down across one of the sectors. Van Gestel got involved as well and forced this very select group away, which basically includes a lot of the names that I'd highlight on my start list. I'm sure they match up well with what you did as well.
Timo Kilich, I think these are recorded images. I have seen them before we went live, trying to return to that first group. Of course, a man with a serious pedigree in cyclocross as well. We will see quite a few riders who like to dabble a little bit in the mud during the winter time. This man is a man from Denmark. He was part of the breakaway, the initial breakaway of 4, where we also found Australian rider Kane Richards of the ARA Skip Capital team and Jacob Scott of the Bolton Equities Black Spoke team. So they were caught. Last that we heard, both Richards and Scott were still dangling in the chasing group, but of course after all they've given. And it was such a small breakaway of just 4 riders. That means that each of these 4 riders has to work hard. There's no free ride in a group of 4.
I'm sure they would have wanted more wheels within that early group, and I'm sure if there's more riders you can get ahead and then try and conserve something for when this select leading group comes across to you. But unfortunately, with only 4 riders at the head of the race for so long, I doubt they'd be able to conserve much at all. And so as soon as they were caught, they've pretty much gone out the back. So we see a problem for Sam Gazer. I think that's a rear flat for him. So, yeah, we've already seen plenty of punches and another one for one of the favourites for this race.
Yeah, he's, of course, a mountain biker, short track, marathon, I think, even. All disciplines, a very talented guy. Why does he get called up for races like this? Because we're in the middle of the mountain bike season.
Like you
Isn't
say,
that a disruption to his vibe, his flow?
I think you'll probably be interested to know that the training is fairly similar nowadays. Very explosive for the mountain biking. As we see that rear tyre, is it soft? It doesn't look completely flat just yet. Going down ever so slowly. They will be running tubeless with sealant in them, so maybe the sealant has managed to stop it from going completely flat, but that won't won't be nice to ride on this tarmac section. As we say, he was at Nova Mesto, the opening round of the World Cup last weekend. He had a good short track, but yeah, not a great cross country. Even in his own words, he was disappointed with his cross country result on the Sunday. But yeah, he seems to be able to duck and dive between the road and between the mountain biking pretty clearly, pretty easily, and yeah, we'll see what he's got in the legs today if he can come back after this puncture.
Well, and if you might have missed it due to all the Giro d'Italia that is going on, from this year, of course, GCN Plus, Discovery Plus and Eurosport do bring you the World Cups in mountain biking. Last weekend was the first one, if I'm correct. And there's going to be a whole season, including the Worlds, coming up for you. And well, we've already seen some spectacular results last weekend from, well, some familiar faces, actually, from cyclocross. If you haven't seen it or haven't heard the results, just go and look it back on our digital platforms, because it was an absolute spectacular race in both the men's and the women's category in Novo Mesto. Back to the racing here, Ian. 55 kilometres to go. We just hit a pretty long sector of road. I think the next one is going to be a pretty long one as well, called Vreeland, or Freeland. I think it's actually Vreeland. And we're basically racing in the port area of Antwerp, where, as you can see, still people are living. We're actually on the border of the Netherlands on many occasions on the course, and there's one little small bit that we actually cross the border. So 99% of the race is actually in Belgium, but just a tiny, tiny little bit in the Netherlands.
That's good to know. I think the next section, as you said, is 49.8 kilometres to go. It's numbered number 16, but we'll ignore that. It is the second passing of the freeland that the riders will do, and I think they only do it twice. It is unpaved and 1,950 metres long, so one of the longer sections that the riders will deal with. It is marked down on my sheet of paper as predominantly a cross tailwind, so look out for some attacks and the pressure being applied at the front of this select leading group across that sector.
Well, we do recognise this man, of course, Florian Vermeers. Last year he won the race, and there's more assistance called in here by Jens Reinders. It's not the first time, actually. This is the second time since I have seen footage that he has got a flat tyre, and also, yet again, with great care, putting down his bike and waiting for a new one. I always like it when riders do that, Ian, and not throwing your bike away because you just get one or five, but just take care of your equipment, because you're also a role model. You know, kids are looking at this, and yeah, you shouldn't be throwing your bike around.
Exactly that. It looks like he's back onto his original bike now, the one with the race number on the seat post. But yeah, I noted down with 80 kilometres to go. He suffered a puncture before, so he's already had to come back from one bike change and now another bike change with just over 50 kilometres to go.
He will be happy with this situation, though, because there's no speed at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. He was fourth last year, so yeah, noted down again on my start list as a potential favourite. But coming back from these bike changes, it's not the end of the world, but it is energy that you don't want to have to be putting out, as I think Sam Gaze just makes it back on to the second half of this split in the front group.
Ryan Christensen there for the Bolton Equities Black Spoke team. Very active, of course. They had Jake Scott in the first group. They're racing here with James Fouché, with Christensen, with George Jackson, Bailey O'Donnell, Rory Townsend and Paul Wright. So the team led there by Greg Henderson, making their way back towards the first group as we are making our way to the next sector of unpaved. 36 kilometres of unpaved in total, 28 of cobbles. That means that it's about 30% is not on tarmac, to put it simple.
Which is actually a really high percentage for one of these races. We have a few of these races, a bit like Trobro, a little bit like Paris-Roubaix, but obviously Paris-Roubaix is just purely cobbles. We have in the UK the Rutland Classic, which has unpaved sectors going across cow fields and dirt roads and gravel roads, etc. So we see Timothy Dupont making his way back to that second group on the road. But Rangers must be feeling really strong. He got back to that second group and just went straight over the top to try and get across to the leading group. We see him there just right of the shot, desperately trying to close down that final gap, but it looks like he's got stuck in the middle and he's going to be engulfed back into the second half of the split.
I saw some very epic pictures from Rutland. People looking absolutely terrible and dirty and happy as well. Yeah, we're in between two longer stretches of unpaved road with Jens Reinders trying to make his way back towards the first group after a second flat tyre. As Ian said, this will have cost him some energy, and we still have 51 kilometres to go. The amount of unpaved road is, well, the amount of number of kilometres is about the same as Paris-Roubaix, but of course Roubaix is 265 kilometres compared to the, let's say, 185 that we have today. So it's a much shorter race. The weather circumstances are great. It hasn't rained in the past days, meaning that especially that top layer of gravel will be particularly loose and dusty. How do you choose your equipment for a race like this, Ian?
Well, they've had kind of 5 attempts at this rate previously, and a lot of the riders have done the race previously, so they should know kind of what setup works best for them. I mean, things have changed a lot in the past few years in terms of tyre technology and certainly the width that riders use, even on a day-to-day basis. Most riders, even say a normal tarmac Tour de France stage, is running 28mm tyres, which back in the day would have been huge. I remember growing up and 19, 20, 21 mil tyres pumped up as hard as we could, 110, 120 psi, almost breaking the track pump, trying to get them as hard as possible. But as that's evolved, we know that to run lower pressures and bigger tyres, keep that contact to the ground and you actually go faster. So it won't be a huge change for the riders, maybe going up to a 30 mil tyre, running around 50 to 60 psi perhaps for today. But ultimately, they can use maybe a mousse in the tubeless to try and seal anything that does puncture, and also a casing within the tyre to try and give some softening in between the tyre and the rim to eliminate pinch punctures. But as we see, you can have all the technology in the world. If you hit one of these flints hard enough on the wrong edge, you will puncture.
And is that like the tan wall tyres that we see now? Is that a special tyre that you use for gravel, or is it just for the pretty of it?
I think that's the aesthetics. The tan wall tyre looks so good, doesn't it? As we hit the freeland sector with Hermans coming to the fore, it is a cross tailwind, so yeah, not such an advantage from being on the wheel. And as you see now, the dust being kicked up from the lead motorbike and from the wheels of the riders within the group, it makes sense to me to be second or third wheel, getting a little bit of draft from rider ahead, but yeah, not taking too much of that dust in the face on these sectors.
Will these riders also use like different frame sets? Because of course, with the rage that we now have with all the gravel bikes, my personal perspective is every bike is a gravel bike as long as you've got your 28, 30 or 32 mil tyres. And most modern road bikes have that clearance anyways. You can go up to 35 easily on most modern road bikes.
Exactly that. And we saw Gianni Vermeersch and Mathieu van der Poel last year at the Gravel World Championships just running the ordinary road set with those big tyres that fit within the frame set. The disc brakes have allowed us to go like that with the frame sets, so they'll all be on road bikes as such, but it doesn't mean you couldn't use it as a gravel bike like the Canyon bike allows people to do.
Looks like Tom van Asbroek there at the front of the bunch for the Israel Premier Tech team. We don't have a lot of World Tour teams here, actually only just 2, with Alpecin de Koning and Groupama FDG. But with Groupama FDG, it's basically their development team racing here with the aforementioned Ben Askey. We have Ronan O'Shea, the son of Stefan O'Shea, Lewis Bauer, or Boer, I'm not really sure. Lawrence Pithy, he's in this group, the man from New Zealand. Eddie Le Vitus, Noah Hobbs, the British rider, and Jens Verbrugge from Belgium. A pure talent squad, as you might know. 9 riders of their development team made the step up to the World Tour squad. 8 of them to their own World Tour team, Groupama FDG, and Jensen Plowright went to Alpecin de Koning. So they almost completely depleted their development setup and, signed a lot of first-year elite, second-year elite riders, 18, 19-year-olds. And that makes them the youngest continental team in the world.
It was an exceptional crop of riders that they had last year that moved on up to the full World Tour team. And I'm sure we won't see the likes of that for a number of years. Normally 2 to 3 perhaps move on up to the World Tour team. But yeah, unprecedented last year that so much talent came through that squad, and it's great to see more riders looking like they're going to be able to make the step up through that squad, and they're doing great things for bringing talent through.
Yeah, and it's also a very popular pathway for the riders from Britain, of course. Sam Watson, Lewis Askey, probably forgetting one of the British riders. Well, I'll look it up for you.
Jake Stewart.
Jake Stewart, of course, Jake. Thanks for that. Forgot about Jake. I'm sorry, Jake. And even today, one of their development riders, I won't give away, spoilers, won a big race, his first big race in his career. So it's not like they are moved up to the World Tour team at Groupama FDG just to get some experience. No, that they're racing young guys like Lenny Martinez, already doing fantastic work in World Tour races like Romandy. It's not like they are there to get experience with the big guys. No, they're actually winning races. They're getting on podiums, and it's a fantastic setup that they have in France, and also accepting a lot of British riders in their development team. So a great pathway. I don't know if there's still talk whether Ineos wants to have their own development team, but yeah, Groupama FDG is a good development team for British riders at the moment.
It certainly is, as we see, hitting another sector, and Vermeersch and Van Gestel, the two riders that really want to take this race on every time it goes off-road. So once again, splitting the group, but looks like they've eased off again for one of these technical corners, and everyone rolls back onto the back of the group.
According to my road book, Ian, we should be around the Opstalpolder right now, which is a combination of gravel and cobbles. So after the gravel here, apparently are cobbles. We have already seen the women's race, which was a very spectacular race as well. Lots of groups, lots of attacks as well. And very important to know that the final 9 to 10 kilometers are mostly tailwind. So like you said, if you want to put an attack on the final sector of unpaved that we have, which is at 10 kilometers from the line, that might be an option for you to stay clear if you have the numbers behind you in terms of your teammates, of course.
Very much so, and here we see Quinten Hermans coming to the fore and really applying some pressure and making everyone hurt behind. Looking at the cross tailwind all the way to the finish, along with the final kind of 4 sectors are all tailwind as well. In between it is slightly different, maybe cross head all the way, but it does lend itself to perhaps a small group going away, or even a solo rider going for a long attack, because aided by that tailwind it would be easier to hold the gap. And Alpecin-Deceuninck have the numbers in this leading group, so you see one after the other applying the pressure at the front. But look at Florian Vermeersch, always in the first 3 or 4 riders, always covering the moves.
Yeah, but he's completely alone. I haven't seen any of the other Lotto Destiny riders in this group, so that is of course a big disadvantage for Florian Vermeersch.
Yeah, we did see one of his probably big helpers before the start of the day, noted down Frederic Frison. He had a crash earlier in the race and dropped his chain in the process. So, yeah, perhaps just at the time of the race, it was really kicking off with Vermeersch on one of these sectors. We see him going again, really lighting things up, but a shake of the head as Van Gestel once again covers the move as they exit that cobbled sector.
Back on to the main road, and this is the place, actually, Ian, that the riders are doing 5 times. This sector and the sector after this, called Rijgersbos, they're here 5 times. I think this is the 4th time they're here. So do you actually familiarize yourself with something like gravel, or is the situation different every time you enter there?
It should be approximately the same, and the riders should get a decent understanding of what's coming up. I'm sure the local riders, and there's plenty of local riders in the race today, would have recce'd sectors, and perhaps even train on some of the sectors. We're going to turn into the next section very quickly, coming with 44.3 kilometres to go, so not long between the sectors at all. The only thing we have got to take into account is obviously all the following cars, all the motorbikes kicking gravel across the road in the corners, etc. But they should have a decent understanding to see once again Timo Kielik come back really strong from that puncher and finds himself in the leading group. Dries de Bont this time. Alpecin really trying to split this one down, and you see the likes of Nizzolo in this leading group. They don't want to leave this one to chance with a group sprint.
Well, they do have strength in numbers there with Albers de Koning. We have seen, of course, Timo Kieli, Quinten Hermans, Gianni Vermeer, Sam Gase. I don't know if he's already back, but there's a lot of Albers de Koning riders in that first group. We have a few riders of Total Energie as well. And Florian Vermeer's, like we said, on his own. So he has to be selective in what he wants to cover and what he has to let go. How do you decide that?
It's a real difficult situation that he finds himself in, because it looks like initially he's just going to try and cover everything to a certain extent. And I think on the unpaved sectors, you're better off just being in the front, the two, second position, third position, that sort of thing, because you'll save a little bit of energy on the wheel, but fundamentally being able to see where you're going and being able to cover those moves on those unpaved sectors is the best place to be. He just needs to be careful on these paved sectors in between the off-road sectors, just not to do too much, not get worked over. But if you sit up too much, for sure an Alpecin de Koning rider is going to go on the attack, as we see there. If you sit up, another rider is going to attack, and again, just on the back foot once again.
Well, the women's team took the win today in the very first edition of the Antwerp Port Epic ladies edition. That's what they call it, ladies edition. I always find that a little bit cringy, but it was a win for their women's team. So I think the men want to match that and go for a win as well. Dries van Gestel, the man of Total Energie, also very active there at the front with the white and blue jersey. This was a very short one. It's called the Oude Papenstraat, just 480 meters of cobbles. But yeah, the next one is coming up pretty soon, like you said, and it's this little loop that we do a few times, but then also leave out one of the 4 sectors and do the other ones. Yeah, it's a complete mess actually. So I hope that the motorbike ordinance that is at the front of the race do have their velo viewer at hand and the right course, because even the map that the organization provided for us was like, well, you said you spent your entire Sunday morning on it, so it's, I don't know how sports directors have prepared this, but I do know what we have in the final hour of racing, and I think that's what it comes to, and we're about in the last hour as we speak. 42.7 kilometers to go. Another attack there by Quinten Hermans. He's been very active, Quinten Hermans.
Yeah, we see Alpecin de Koning, their only policy is just keep attacking, as we see Dries de Bont on the radio there and coming backwards. I don't know if he's had a problem or whether he's just taking the opportunity to come to the back of the group and perhaps get some information from the DS or a bottle or a gel or something like that. But here we see Van Gestel stuck on the front.
Also in this group, a man from Canada, Nicholas Sikowski of the Q36.5 team. So good for him to find one of their riders in that first group, and a Canadian no less. The chasers, Jens Reinders, of course, after these flat tyres, as Lawrence Pithy is going for it. Of course not, it's still Dries de Bont. I thought, well, that is pretty ambitious if you're the only rider of your team, and Lawrence is the only of Groupama FDG. But it's just one attack after the other for the team from Belgium.
They've got the numbers, so they're going to use it. They're going to just keep firing riders off the front and make the others chase. Meanwhile, their 3 or 4 teammates are all going to be able to sit in the wheels within this group. We see a big lull in the action. No one wants to take this on. They're all looking round. Israel Premier tick 2 riders in there, but they have got Reinders just off the back, so that perhaps they're waiting for him until they have 3 riders and then come to the front. Total Energy with 2 riders, but leave it too long and de Bont will be gone, with so many Alpecin de Koning riders blocking behind as well.
But an hour on your own, isn't that ambitious?
It is, and we got one rider coming across.
Sander de Pestel.
That's a good move, because if he gets up to De Bont, Alpecin de Koning behind blocking, suddenly it's a real good opportunity. Like you say,
Whoa.
it's a long way to go on your own, and the gap just opening up, no cohesion in the chase behind. And this is going to be a decent gap already.
Yeah, that was a smart move. And of course, Dries de Bont, he has got a nose for it, doesn't he? Whether that's in the Giro d'Italia, whether that is at the Belgian National Championships, where he did a, 18, 19 kilometer solo, just defending a 10, 12 second gap on the chasers as Sandy Dujardin goes with Laurens Pitty there. But yeah, if you immediately glance over your shoulder in a counterattack, it's not full gas, isn't it? It's not like you're really going for it.
No, and the problem they've got is every time they look round, they're going to see an Alpecin de Koning jersey, which kind of just puts you off, as we see, just looking round, see an Alpecin rider sit up. And this process will go over and over again with little counter moves, little counter attacks, but all the time that they're covered off by Alpecin, then kind of the chase just goes out of it. As we see these two now. These two get together, work well together. These two could go all the way.
Yeah, they really are committing to it. The two Belgians, Dries de Bont and Sander de Pestel. That was a good move from the man from Flanders Baloise. And it's up to Van Asbroek. Yeah, they have some riders in that group from Israel Premier Tech. And 40k, it's still a very long way. And we've seen there's mechanicals, there's crashes. But that was a pretty decent move there by Dries de Bont. And I don't know how some riders do it, but some of them just really have a knack for it, don't they? To know exactly when they have to go.
Exactly that. Some riders have a sense of when things are going to split and when you're going to be allowed to get ahead. He didn't put down a huge attack out the saddle all the way, which tends to make people chase as such. But if you just put in a small seated acceleration, just pull yourself clear from the group, and before you know it, you've got 10, 15 seconds like they have now. Gianni Vermeersch coming to the back, wants to speak to the car as we're heading very quickly to the next sector. 39.2 kilometres to go, the Naast A12 section. So this is the second passing of an unpaved 550 metre sector, which they're on now.
What they mean with Naast A12 is actually besides the A12 highway. They just couldn't they just couldn't figure out a name, I think. So this is just a geographical location. It's next to the road, next to the A12. So, which is the most important road in the port area, as you can see. If there is big traffic around the ring of Antwerp, this is a road that you can take, especially if you're coming from the Netherlands. But yeah, it's... I think this is actually that one little part that we have near the Dutch border. Look at the face there of Sandy Dujardin after 150 kilometers oddly of gravel back onto the bike path.
Nicely using the grass on the inside of the corner, right on the apex, just hit that grass and it provides a little bit more grip, weirdly enough, than that very loose gravel. Able to maintain his speed out onto the bike path. And a decent little gap now, but it's a big ask on your own to get across that gap.
Thomas Bonnet actually, and not Sandy Dujardin. Both of them stage winners in the Tour of Rwanda. But yeah, the gap is still relatively short, relatively small there on the top of your screen. We have our two leaders with Sander de Pestel and Dries de Bont. In between this man, Thomas Bonnet. But then, yeah, in that chasing group, who is going to do it? Dries van Gestel doesn't have to do it. The other three Alpecin de Koning riders don't have to do it. And Florian Vermeers is kind of stuck there. The next sector there, and the camera is giving us a little bit of trouble. This one is called De Leeuw, which is translated as the lion. We also have a sector called the cod, as in the fish. So they're very creative with the names, but the one that they couldn't figure out, Ian, was next to the A12. It's like, why don't we call that the rabbit or something, or the brown bear? Be creative, come on.
Just say what you see sometimes. But this is one of the longest sectors. It's the second passing that the riders will do, and it is the second of two. So the final time across this long section of unpaved, 2,405 metres, and Bonnet doing a decent job. He's almost made his way across.
Great footage there from the helicopter of roads that usually probably are only used by people on horseback and on tractors. This is Jonas Geens of the Tartaletto team. He's also alone in this group, and the gap is gradually going up to 26 seconds. But like you said, Ian, this last hour of racing where we are right now is just one sector after the other.
Exactly. It's one sector almost leads into the other. So this sector, the De Leeuw, it had 730 metres of cobbles initially, and it went straight into then this unpaved sector, which is 2.5 kilometres. And then with 35.3 kilometres to go, we're straight into the cod section of the third passing of 3, unpaved, which is another 1,500 metres. As we see, Bonnet has made it across that gap. That's a really strong ride, using this off-road sector to come all the way across. Takes a look round, and he'll be really happy to see that still 20 seconds back to this chasing group.
Israel Premier Tech, they have a few riders in that group as well. They're now also going for it. Yeah, and the likes of Florian Vermeers are a defending champion, but also Lawrence Pithy, the man from New Zealand, and Nicholas Sikowski, our Canadian rider. They are in a little bit of a situation where they can't really do anything. They can, of course, they can bridge across to the front, but look at Total Energie. They have 2 riders in this group to, for Plan B. And if Florian Vermeers or Sikowski or Pithy, they really fire off one of that, chase, it's probably the end of it. You can't do that 2 or 3 times.
No, exactly. And Israel and Total Energy and the teams with more than one rider in there really need to quickly sort this out and say, you need to chase. I don't feel great. Perhaps I'll go all in for the chase. As we see, I think it's Reinders has made it back into this group.
It's
and
Reinders,
obviously,
yeah.
Nizzolo's in there as well. As we see a little extra off-road as he's trying to get round Timo Kielik to come back to the front. But rather than these surges, he just needs to ride a good pace and try and encourage some of the other riders to come up and give him a turn. Because these big surges forces everyone onto the back foot within this group. And then once he sits up, it kind of makes them rethink and perhaps a bit of a shake of the head as we see him going again. But I think this is actually going to discourage a kind of a cohesive chase.
We see that Kane Richards is still there, the Australian rider of ARA Skip Capital from our original breakaway. Good to hear them there. We have 2 Danish riders. They wear that jersey, which is a little bit reminiscent of a referee. It's green with black and white. The Colo Quick team, pretty old team already. Got 3 riders here. So as you can see, riders are coming back at the moment. And of course, that changes the situation a little bit.
It certainly does, as Florian Vermeers has had enough, and yeah, he wants to take off solo and try and get across this 26-second gap now. But I feel like he's just waited a little bit too long, as Quinten Hermans looks like he's going to cover this one off as we're heading quickly into another unpaved section, the Capel Joar. I'll leave you to the pronunciation of that one.
I'm trying to figure out where we are, actually. Oh, you mean the cod one? Cabo
Yes.
Yao. Yeah, that's our
Yes.
cod. Yeah, we just call it the cod sector. We just call it that. But look at how loose the gravel is on the inside of that turn. Here we are, Cabo Yao. And look at the wind here.
A big cross tailwind across this sector. This is the 3rd time that the riders have done this, and the final time they will. And it is a cross tailwind / crosswind, depending on there are some slight changes in direction as we see some real deep gravel building up on the inside and outside of the corners, which makes it really tricky to take the fastest line through the corner. Ideally, you want to go from outside to outside, but Hermans look really powerful there, just closing that small gap to Vermeersch. And yeah, look at the damage that this is doing behind.
Well, this is a fantastic sector. Interesting enough, on the flag, it says wind in front. Wind 4. So it's really not the white ones, but the green ones actually say headwind. So which is funny. It's probably a company or something, but yeah, to have that, and you can see. Well, this is of course a pretty big tailwind for Florian Vermeersch and Quinten Hermans. 18 seconds now. Hermans, of course, doesn't have to work here. Hermans can just sit on.
Exactly that, and the good thing about the tailwind, that'll just encourage Florian Vermeersch to continue with this one, because he knows there isn't such an advantage being sat on the wheel, especially on this off-road sector, and he knows that he's got to close this down. It's down to 15, 16 seconds now. If he doesn't do this now, then the race could be slipping away from him. Using the motorbike, he's getting right up behind this motorbike. I know it's zoomed in ever so slightly, but he will be taking advantage from the draft ever so slightly from the camera bike.
Well, we do know that these kind of races do produce some pretty epic photographs, and yeah, it's a whole different scenario when it's wet. Then it's like really sticky. You have more flat tires on this kind of surface, but now it's mostly dusty. What's next, Ian, on our map?
We're quickly closing in on the next sector. 32.7 kilometres to go, we'll get to the Counterschurp, which will be the third passing of that, of 3. And it's a cobbled sector, 1,315 metres long, and that is a cross tailwind. So not far to go until that sector, which probably encourages Florian Vermeersch just to continue this one. He's just got to accept that Hermans is coming across this gap with him and won't give him a turn. As we see the leaders turning in now, getting very close to the next sector. Everything
is still within half a minute, 40 seconds of each other. Although, yeah, there we have that second group. This is the first group. This move was initiated by Dries de Bond, the man there in the colours of Alpecin de Koning, followed by Sander de Pestel of Team Flanders Baloise, and then Thomas Bonnet made the jump across. Then we have this counter-attack initiated by Florian Vermeersch in the red and greenish aqua blue of Lotto Destiny, followed by Quinten Hermans, and there's a rocket coming across there towards that group. I can't identify from this helicopter shot who that is or even which team it is, but that was a pretty solid move.
I think it's yet another Alpecin de Koning rider, but whoever it was seems to have great legs today, and they're shutting down that gap, and that's going to lead to 3 Alpecin de Koning riders in that leading group, which surely means that group is destined to go all the way now with 3 riders in there. They're going to have to work. The only thing that possibly might happen is perhaps the likes of Vermeersch will sit at the back and say, well, you've got 3 guys here, you do the riding, and perhaps they won't be quite as eager once they're at the front to do all of the riding.
And then we're talking Florian Vermeersch and not Gianni Vermeersch,
Correct.
Which makes matters a little bit more complicated because they're 2 different teams. Yeah, our next sector, this is the one, it's called Counterscherp. I think this is the far western side of our course today. And this is the 3rd time we are here. So the people had a good day out because it was also included in the women's race earlier today. Florian Vermeersch, indeed, what a move there by Timo Killich. From the helicopter shot, it looks like he just launched a rocket there.
Well, I thought he must have great legs today because he came back super fast. He punctured at a really bad time with 74 kilometres to go, just when the race had all split. And the way he came back to the leading group, I thought he must have good legs. And it looks like, just from those images, we saw him coming across that gap, like you say, like he was shot out of a rocket. And I'm sure De Bont will be told about this, and it'll be interesting to see if he just stops working for a small period of time. Right now he is still working, but I'm sure he could miss a few turns and just allow his 2 teammates to come up to this one, because 3 riders in a group of 6 is going to be a very good situation for the Alpecin de Koning team.
Yeah, most definitely. It's the big boss himself, Christoph Roodhoofd, behind the wheel of the team car. Let's see what happened here. Ooh, looks like Nisolo had a problem and needed some assistance. Probably going to find himself behind the team car of Israel Premier Tech and try to come back. Two of his teammates at the front there, in that chasing group with Tom van Asbroek and Jens Reinders.
I think potentially
yeah, sorry, go on.
Front wheel puncher for Nizzolo. One of the good things about these dusty off-road sector is the front wheel was perfectly clean, so that one's been on the team car perhaps. So yeah, a puncher for Nizzolo at a really bad time, just when things were really splitting down as we hit the Derdeweg for the third passing of this. Cobbles only 200 metres long and a tailwind across this sector, but it's taking a little while for Florian Vermeersch to shut this one down. I'm really surprised that, given the situation now, that I guess they're trying to wear Florian Vermeersch down ever so slightly, but I'd have thought perhaps at this point in the race, give him a turn, close it down, and as I say, 3 riders from 6, 50% of the group. That's a great position to be in, rather than just having 1 out of the 3 in this leading group.
Yeah, the Derdeweg is over. More cobbles right now immediately here on the Zoutestraat, which basically translates as Salt Street. Well, there will be some sweaty faces and some salt for the riders. It's about 22 degrees, which translates into 73 Fahrenheit for those of you watching in the United States. Welcome. This is the Antwerp Port Epic edition number 6, but it has a much longer history as the Schaal Cels. But it didn't include all these off-road sectors. It was more like a sprinter's race in and around Antwerp in the past. But the first time it was called the Antwerp Port Epic. It was won by Guillaume van Kersbulk. In 2019, Aimé de Gent ahead of Tim Merlier. In 2020, it was Gianni Vermeersch, Stan de Wulf and Baptiste Planckaert on the podium. In 2021, it was actually his first race back after, I think, an injury or something. Mathieu van der Poel, Taco van der Hoorn and Tim Merlier on the podium. And last year we had Vermeersch and Vermeersch. I'm always inclined to say Sven Nys because it's such a legendary combination. But it's Thibaut Nys, of course, last year in 3rd place behind Florian and Gianni Vermeersch. So that is the situation. Of course, we don't have Thibaut Nys here. He was racing. Where was he racing the other day? Hungary? Yes, he was racing in Hungary. 2nd place for him there on stage 4. He will be racing the Tour of Norway next week. And Ian and I will be bringing you the Tour of Norway from Friday, which is a 4-day race this year due to financial setbacks for the organisation, but still a pretty decent start field. I saw the likes of Egan Bernal also on the preliminary start list. So absolutely one to watch here on our digital platforms with Ian Field and myself, Jose Bain. But first, just short of 30 kilometres to go here in the Antwerp Port Epic. And the difference between Group 1 here with Bonnet, De Pestel and De Bond and the second group is just 15 seconds. Oh, that's very friendly of the Israel Premier Tech Swanee there, handing out a bottle.
One of the great things about cycling is those little things where teams will help out other teams' riders in this situation. He must be pretty desperate for a bottle, the way he veered across the road in desperation, holding out a hand for that bottle. But it's interesting. It looks like
Dusty throat.
The call has gone out from the Alpecin de Koenig car that these two can work now with Florian Vermeersch to close down this gap. But in actual fact, Group 3 on the road looked like they'd got their act together and put a decent chase together, because they weren't all that far behind as we hit yet another sector, the Oude Papenstraat. The 5th passing of this one. It's only 480 metres long of cobbles, and this is the last time they'll do this sector.
The Dutch word papen actually refers as a bit of a swear word to Catholics, because the Pope, Pape, that's what it refers to. So a little bit of history there for you. Most of Belgium is a Catholic country, by the way, but especially during the war with the Spanish at the end of the 16th century, it was a bit of a swear word to be called a Pape. This is Group 3. With the two riders there of Israel Premier Tech, Jens Reinders, Tom van Asbroek. I don't know if Nisolo has already managed to come back after his mechanical. Of course, we can easily recognize him with his distinctive helmet. No, he's not in this group just yet. They might have instructions to wait for him there, Ian. That's why they are at the back of the group.
We're on that section of the course now where they come really thick and fast. So they're on to the Rager's Boss now, which we've seen already in this race. It's the fifth passing of 5, and it's 480 metres of cobbles. And then after this, only with 26 kilometres to go, we're straight into the Obstelpolder, which we saw earlier in the race, which is that cobbled going into an unpaved sector. So, yeah, coming thick and fast at this point of the race.
Yeah, and to go with the animal analogy that we have been going on as a theme, this sector is called after a heron, a bird.
Learning all my Dutch animals today.
Yeah. It's like taking your kid to kindergarten. It's like, what bird is that? Although heron might not be the first option in your toddler's animal book. I think we'll just basically start with cow and dog and cat. Well, the two groups are merging. And a bottle there for the young man on the right side of the road. The other one is holding up a bottle, but if you do it in the middle of that grassy field, about 1.5 meters from the road, it's not really going to help the riders. I think he was just hoping for more bottles there.
Yeah, they've done a really good job. Mainly Florian Vermeersch closing that gap down. Yeah, I thought for a moment there that the Alpecin de Koning riders were going to be really nasty and just begin to jump him with around 200-300 metres of a gap still to shut. But in the end, they just sat behind him, let him fully close that one off. A very short section of paved road now before we head into a really long sector. I think Vermeersch is going to be feeling that one, that long chase. So it'll be interesting to see whether Alpecin de Koning go on the attack on this longer section.
So we have 3 riders of Alpecin de Koning in that first group with Dries de Bond, Quinten Hermans and Timo Kielich. We have Florian Vermeersch there, Sander de Pestel of Flanders Baloise and Thomas Bonnet of the Total Energy team. This Danish team, the Kohler Quick referees, they have 3 guys in that first group, but 2 of them were in the initial breakaway of 4. So they have already spent quite a lot of energy and I think therefore do not participate in the chase. A quick glance there, Ian. It looks like Nisolo is back in this group.
He is. He did a really good job. Very quickly got back, probably with the help of his team car. But here we are now onto another sector.
I'm quickly glancing on my notes here, and this might be the Obstalpolder coming up again.
Yeah, they've already done the 420 metres of cobbles that kicked it off, and now they're on to 1,635 metres of unpaved, categorised road. So the leading group just taking a minute after quite a hard section of the race. As just to say that Timo Kielich comes back to the front of the race. I think it's definitely going to fall onto the shoulders of Alpecin de Koning now to do the majority of the work in this group to keep it away. But the problem they've got is they've got 3 very, very strong riders with them.
Yeah, and this is the part of the course around the town of Berendrecht, which we've done 5 times. So that's why, of course, all the Swannies were positioned there. And with this race situation, with just 24 seconds between Group 1 and Group 2, that also means that it's not allowed for the team cars to be positioned behind the breakaway. So, yeah, you really rely on the Swannies on the side of the road to get your drinks. And it's pretty thirsty weather, and especially there with all the dust. Dries de Bond looks to be in a little bit of trouble there. Or maybe keeping a safe distance, Ian. Is that maybe a reason why he's at the back?
You can hang back on these sectors. You see now as he just rolls into the back of the group as they slow down for one of these technical corners. It was great to see that helicopter shot us into one of those corners. Timo Kielich, the confidence and the extra speed he was able to carry in over Florian Vermeersch. So yeah, showing off those cyclocross off-road skills, just having the confidence to go in that little bit faster, but Right now, Israel Premier Tech coming to the front of this chasing group. 2 riders to chase back that leading group for Jacopo Nizzolo. Obviously, the protective rider, as he has to put a foot down. We see on the inside of those corners, the gravel kind of gathers and gets really deep. It looked like his front wheel just tucked underneath him ever so slightly. A quick foot out dab of the ground, held himself up and clipped back in, and on he goes. Something we often see in off-road disciplines, but not something that, as I see Florian Vermeer's going sideways in that corner, just laying down the power while the bike was turning. Back wheel stepped out, but very well held. His little bit of cyclocross riding that he does do probably came into good use there. The best thing you can do in those situations is keep pedalling, keep power going through that rear wheel, help the bike turn. Worst thing you can do is freeze or tense up in that situation, but held it well.
The cyclocross season in Belgium is starting very late this year. The September races are cancelled. Kruibeke is cancelled, and we're starting on the 8th of October only, which is 1 week before the World Cup in the United States. Starting on the B Mine in Beringen. So the season starts really late, and I think it also has to do with the fact that, most riders are most Belgian riders, most Belgian top riders are now also involved in other sports. And of course, organisers do want to entice these top riders to start their season as well. But 8th of October, that's only 3 weeks before the Koppenberg Cross. So it's pretty late this year, actually, that we are starting the cyclocross season. Of course, in other parts of Europe, they start a little bit earlier than that. But no September races anymore in Belgium. I do hope that we show the September races in the United States again, though. Pretty spectacular nighttime racing. And last year we had a lot of mud, Ian. It was a mudslide in Roanoke. Anyways, back to our group here. It looks like a circus is into town there. Pretty interesting tent there for a VIP village. Never seen a circus tent as a VIP village. But what I wanted to say is that these 3 riders of Israel Premier Tech in that second group, both Jens Reinders and Tom van Asbroek, they've worked a lot already. Reinders, of course, because he had 2 flat tyres. And Tom van Asbroek, he was part of an earlier move on the attack in the same group as Ben Askey. So these 2 riders, they've already given quite a lot. And these 6, well, they're working together. 22.7 kilometres. It's going to be a difficult situation for the second group, I guess.
It's a very big ask at this point. The only thing I would say is everyone to a certain extent is tired at this point, apart from perhaps Timo Kielik, who seems to be the Duracell bunny today. Comes to the fore again, pushing things through the corner, and what that does, it just makes the riders behind just close another little gap as the bunny hops up that curb down onto that smaller road. I just love this route that the race organisers has put together. The riders are never going in a straight line for longer than probably 500-600 metres at a time.
It's also what Wout van Aert said about the course in Glasgow, and Lotte Kopecky as well, that there's never a long sector. There's so many turns on the course, and of course the distance is the longest in many, many years, making it a really difficult World Championships in Glasgow in August. But I'm also amazed, Ian. As you might know, I've not been into cyclocross that long. I started falling in love with the sport about 5 years ago, and before that I thought it was just Flemish folklore. But when you see these riders in action and you see what they can actually do on a bike, you know, with their gravity points and how they handle bikes, if you ever have a chance, and it doesn't have to be top-notch Belgian World Cup races, but if there's a cyclocross near you, and I think actually the Australians have their national championships this weekend or next weekend, do try and go watch a cyclocross race because it's so cool. It's only 50 minutes or an hour and a bit of your attention span, so it's over before you know it, and it's absolutely pure poetry on a bike.
Yeah, don't get me started on cyclocross. I won't stop talking about it. It is my first love for sure. But once again, Dries de Bont just off the back on those off-road sectors, just biding his time, perhaps bluffing ever so slightly. And then there's a lull in that front group, and who goes off the front on the attack? Dries de Bont himself. I think he's definitely going to be used as a sacrificial lamb during the last 20 kilometres of this race. He's going to keep going on the attack, make the other riders chase, and perhaps Kielik and Hermans will be saved for a final sector or perhaps even a sprint. Both of them are very fast finishers.
We're on the terrains of the Pito School of Agriculture. You can learn welding, you can learn all sorts of things. And these gardens that we just saw are part of the school as well. We're in Stabroek, which is in the harbour area, because we are racing the Antwerp Port Classic. And the port of Antwerp is the second biggest in Europe. Very important port area here, together with Rotterdam, actually the gateway to Northern Europe, and on the big rivers, the Schelde River when it comes to Antwerp, and the Maas when it comes to Rotterdam. They are the gateway to Europe, to the hinterland, as they call it in German. I don't think you can translate as backcountry. I think that's not the good translation, because it has all sorts of negative connotations to it. But yeah, the port of Rotterdam and Antwerp are really, 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 really big. And we will see some images in the final 20 kilometers with the big cranes and everything, because our final unpaved sector is at 10k to go, and then we go straight for the port area. The chasers here: Reinders, Van Asbroek, Sikowski, Caden Richards, of course, Nizolo is still there. The three riders of the Cola Quick team. We have Lawrence Pithy still in this group. And 18 seconds is the indication at the moment. It's still not over.
Those riders of Israel Premier Tech are doing a really good job as we hit the Botersweg with 1,495 metres of unpaved gravel road to deal with, and then it finishes off with 495 metres of cobbles. It's the third time that these guys have raced across this in slightly different directions each time, so they'll know this one pretty well. It's a tailwind to begin with and then turns into a cross tail, so should aid the gap ever so slightly, should aid this front group. But yeah, those Israel Premier Tech, they're going all in, because they know if they don't bring this back, they're not going to try and win this bike race. So you might as well go all in now, sacrifice yourself with 20 kilometres to go and blow up with 15k to go. But as long as you get Nizzolo back into the front of this race, then they stand a chance.
Well, the elastic is going to break at some point, and they are the only ones working in this group. The other ones, they don't have any teammates. We have Joran Bloem there of the Tour de Titema Unibet team. Sikowski is on his own. We've got the two riders of Total Energie, but of course they've got Thomas Bonnet there at the front. The three riders there for the Cola Quick team, but like I said, two of them were part of our early breakaway today. We also have Lawrence Pithy, but the man of Groupama FDG is on his own as well. So everybody just relies on the work there of Van Asbroek and Jens Reinders. And, well, I'm afraid the elastic band is going to snap in the next kilometres.
Dries de Bont with a foot out through that section. It looks like he's maybe got the call that the gap was beginning to come down, and he's just going to go to the front of this one and just drive it for as long as he can on this off-road sector, try and get the gap up a little bit higher. But as we see right now through that turn, the gap comes down ever so slightly, down to 16, 17 seconds now.
We're now on the Butter Road, and that means that we have 3 more sectors after this. The 1,700 metres of off-road at the Blokweg, the 290 metres of cobbles at the Beenhouwerstraat or the Butcher Street, and the final one is the Ekersche Putte, and that comes at 10 kilometres from the line, 1.1 of unpaved and 400 metres of cobbles. So most of it is now over, of the 54 kilometres of unpaved. 64, actually. It's a lot. It's 30%. That's what it is. 19, and you know, Ian, these 18, 19 seconds, it seems like it's nothing, but if you've got 6 riders committed at the front and only 2 in this group, you're not going to win that battle.
No, it's very difficult right now. It's 6 against 2, and yeah, I know who I'd put my money on at this point, but fair play to them for giving it as much as they are. Dries de Bont on the back pulling some faces. I'm sure he's going to miss a few turns right now. He did a huge job. Looks like perhaps Quinten Hermans might be the protected rider as Timo Kielik comes to the front to do a big turn. But the problem is when you...
weird, because he's the fastest of the 3.
You would have thought so. Perhaps they're going to try and launch Hermans on one of those final 3 sectors. But the problem Kielik has there is he does such a hard turn that actually discourages the others from other teams to go through as hard. So just showing how strong you are can sometimes be a mistake towards the finale of this race. But take a leaf out of De Bont's book, put the tongue out, shake the head, go to the back for a few turns, etc. Lull people into thinking you're on the back foot rather than, showing how strong you are.
And the man from the province of Limburg, which is all the way to the east of the country, Timo Kielich. Of course, he has a solid background in cyclocross, but this is the year that he's going to focus mostly on the road. And, a good start at it, actually. He's already got a 4th place in Nocrecours, a 3rd in Denain. We have an 8th place in Flèche Ardennaise, a 3rd in the national Kemesse race of Grand Prix van Mark, and only Thursday he was 3rd in the Circuit de Wallonie as well. So a pretty decent start there for Timo Kielich for his newly launched road career.
He's had a very strong start to his road career. A very promising youngster in the cyclocross field, and looks like he's turning into a very strong road rider as well. But we see that group just behind. It's almost touching distance. They'll look up and see the plume of dust. They'll be able to almost taste them, and just still can't quite close down that final 20-odd seconds.
I'm afraid that they will not succeed if the GPS is actually correct. We're going towards the 30-second mark as we just exit the Blokweg, and then one small sector of cobbles still to come, and then a slightly longer one at the Ekersche Putte at 10k to go. It's really, really, really hard work there by Van Asbroek, by Reinders, but it's a lost battle really for them. This is number 106, Blake Agnoletto of the ARA team. Oh, it's actually 104, the man, of course, from our original breakaway of 4, Kane Richards. Good on him to try and hold on and get himself a good result in one of the European races that ARA Skip Capital are racing here.
That's some ride to go in the early breakaway and then to hang on for this long at the front of the race. The final 16 kilometres, 10 miles of racing will feel excruciatingly long for him, but he'll be riding himself to a really good result today if he manages to hold on.
What is the decision in the team car of Alpecin de Koning going to be? Christoph Roodhoofd there, the one of the 2 managers, of course, of the project that started with a cyclocross team quite humbly and now has got, a world empire of a women's team, a men's World Tour team, still that cyclocross setup as well. They have a fantastic result in mountain biking with Puk Pietersen, with Sam Gaze as well now. So it's a bit of an empire there by the Roodhoofd brothers. But yeah, he's got 3 riders here. Quinten Hermans, Timo Kielich and Dries de Bont. Dries de Bont has been sitting in 6th position for a while. I do expect him to launch one of these typical Dries de Bont late attacks.
Yeah, especially when this lulls ever so slightly, perhaps when we're on a paved section of road. That can quite often be the place where everyone takes a look round, takes a breath, takes a gel, a final bottle, a swig from the bottle, and that's thrown. So, just keep an eye on Dries de Bont. We're expecting him to perhaps go over the top of that group once there's a bit of a lull in the action.
Look at these stones there. That is going to cause accidents. Luckily, not today. Laurens Pithy here. Another great race by the youngster who saw his spring campaign hampered by a crash and an injury. But Laurens Pithy is back in the race, one of these talented young ones of Groupama FDJ.
This group still working really well together. Next cobbled sector comes with 12.8 kilometres to go, so we've got a little while now. Quite a long road section that these riders have to deal with, and it's probably in everyone's best interest to just keep rolling through right now. I'm expecting fireworks on that final sector with 10.2 kilometres to go, that 1,100 metres of unpaved into 465 metres of cobbles. That's where I'm expecting the big attacks to go down, but yeah, as we said earlier, perhaps something from Dries de Bont before we get there. We see the riders talking. absolutely essential at this point in the race that everyone within that team knows how each other's feeling, knows the strengths and weaknesses of each rider, so that they can get the best possible result. It's always a difficult situation. Clearly they've got 50% of this leading group, 3 riders out of 6, so we know that they should get the result. But Florian Vermeer's just beginning to skip some turns. I'm not surprised, but the only thing he needs to watch out for, beginning to skip turns, means Alpecin-Deceuninck might start firing riders off the front as the gap comes down to 14, 15 seconds now.
It's really tense, isn't it? And once you think, okay, now it's the 30-second mark, the elastic has snapped. They managed to get back to 15 seconds again as we are at 13.6 kilometers from the finish line in this very exciting edition of the Antwerp Port Epic. We've got our 6 riders at the front. 4 of them have won bike races as a professional. Johnny Vermeers and Florian Vermeers, of course, has won this race. Quinten Hermans has won a bike race. Thomas Bonnet, I saw him win in Rwanda this year. And the same goes for Dries de Bont, of course, the former Belgian champion. 2 riders haven't won a pro bike race in the elite category just yet. Timo Kielich and Sander de Pestel, the man from Sint-Niklaas, which is just a stone's throw from where we are today in the province of East Flanders. So home race there for the man of Flanders-Baloise, Sander de Pestel. The penultimate sector here, the cobbles of the Butcher Street here in Ekeren, the Beenhouwerstraat. It's going to be interesting to see what the tactics of Alpecin-Deceuninck will be like. And if you want to tell them apart, the man with the Belgian flag on the sleeves is Dries de Bont, the tallest is Timo Kielich, and the smallest is Quinten Hermans. 13-14 seconds is what is indicated at the moment. It looks like the motorbikes are not in between these 2 groups anymore. The group here with our winner of 2020, Johnny Vermeers, but also with Lawrence Pitty there. I think that Sikowski is now dropped from that group, the man from Canada. But we do have still a Giacomo Nisolo. And if these groups get back together, and I say it's a big if, Nisolo is the strongest, the fastest, I think. But what can you do after 192 kilometers of racing on the dirt? It's a different sprint, isn't it?
It is, but 9 times out of 10, the fastest is the fastest. It is a long race, but it's not like a super long 250, 280 kilometre classic. So I would expect Nizzolo, like you said, to be the fastest left in these 2 leading groups. But don't underestimate Kielich. I'm a little bit worried for him. He's doing some big turns, obviously. Fairly young in terms of a road career. Quite excited to be leading group of a race like this. But I'd have thought Israel Premier Tech's their best option is just to try and go as hard as possible now until 10.2 kilometres to go. And then I fear Nizzolo will just have to go all in across that unpaved sector and try and close that gap down solo, because those 2 riders have got to be on their knees at this point of the race now. This has been a long, hard, drawn-out chase for those guys.
We are back in the province of Antwerp, in the town of Ekeren, where they have the put of Ekeren, and that is where we are going. A put is basically a pit, a well, and we are going towards that part. It's where they found the final stretch of gravel for today's race around the Bospolder forest area, and then we make our way back to the Port Authority headquarters, Het Havenhoofd. Lovely architectural building that you will see once we get there. But the final 10 kilometers, Ian, are basically on an industrial estate times 10.
Yes, big, wide, open roads, but predominantly a tailwind all the way from that final sector all the way to the finish line. So as I said earlier, it will suit a solo breakaway or a small group going all the way to the line. It's harder at high speeds to really take big time out of people ahead of you. So it is the first and only passing of the final sector. As I said, 1,100 metres of unpaved and 465 metres of cobbles to finish off these unclassified sections of off-road, and that will be coming in 200 metres time.
And then we have concluded 64 kilometres of either cobbles or this unpaved, gravelly woodland forest roads of this Antwerp Port Epic race. 1/3 of the course is on terrain like this. We have seen crashes, luckily not very many, but we have seen flat tyres. Of course, they're inevitable with these little flint-like stones that you have there. And it's still 21 seconds between that first group and this one, where the man from New Zealand is really struggling. Still 2 riders there of the Alpes in the Koning team. Also, Nicholas Sikowski is still there, the Canadian of the Q36.5 team. With Kili really, really strong today. He is, in my opinion, the fastest in the sprint. And this is a very sneaky attack. Look what Quinten Hermans is doing at the front of that group.
Hermans just eased off ever so slightly through that series of corners and just allowed Kierlich that 5-6 metres. But Vermeersch, wise to it, straight round Hermans once he realised what was going on, and he closes that one down.
But it was a sneaky one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's like a pro cycling manager move. Just, yeah, getting a few teammates at the front and letting one sit up a little bit further back. But they have the numbers. They can do those sorts of tactics within this group now. But coming towards the end of that sector, well, onto the 460 metres of cobbles now, and still no one has taken advantage.
No, Dries de Bond, he's still preparing for that all or nothing attack. This is the final stretch of cobbles today. We had 28 kilometres in total. Of course, these are lovely, lovely, neatly paved cobbles, and they won't hurt these riders. Oh, new wheel there for Gianni Vermeersch. And a rear wheel, which always takes a little bit more time. This, of course, is going to end his chances for a good position. And he's not going to win the race like he did in 2020 or even end up on the podium. Really, really sad to see Gianni Vermeersch drop out of that first group. It's a proper fast wheel change here by the mechanic of Alpes in de Koning. Still wearing that Raymond Poulidor dedication jersey that they had made for the Tour de France. I still see it a lot in races. The staff really likes it, or they ordered a whole bunch of it, and they're still trying to plough through the stock that they have of that particular jersey. But it's a good design. It stands out. It's not the blue that many other teams have. No,
I think that's something that initially Team Sky and now Ineos implemented with their bright orange for the soigneurs in the feed zones. And it looks like Alpes in de Koning just getting their soigneurs dressed up in the outfit that stands out the most. As here we see Dries de Bond.
There we go.
We knew it was coming at some stage, and Florian Vermeersch has to close this one down, but he's looking round. Now he continues on the pedals, but not 100% committed, knowing that there's 2 teammates on the wheel.
He is going all out, and Dries de Bond knows how to do this. In his first race back after his life-threatening crash almost 10 years ago in Halle in Gooichem, this is what he did. This is how he won the Belgian national championships as well, defending a lead of just 10-12 seconds. This is... well, it's not how he won the Giro stage. Of course, that was a group of 4, if I recall correctly. But Dries de Bond, he's a cunning rider. He always sniffs out the opportunities. And now it's up to the other riders to close the gap. He tries to be as arrow as possible. But Ian, is this still within the regulations?
Well, he is leaning on his forearms, but he is holding the levers. So it seems to be that grey area that the UCI are allowing. But the 3 riders that aren't from Alpes in de Koning, they just have to ignore the fact that they've got 2 passengers within this group, because we see Florian Vermeersch getting worried about Hermans on the wheel. And as soon as you ease up, it goes out 1 or 2 seconds further. So the best thing you can do is just commit, because you have to close this down. Otherwise, you're not going to get a chance to win this bike race. De Pestel coming through now to do his turn. As I say, those 3 riders not from Alpecin Deceuninck, they just have to come together now. Just realise that they have a common cause here to close this one down. But every time they look around or skip a turn or allow one of the Alpecin Deceuninck riders to come back to the front and slow things up, he just gains another second or so, and it's up to 10, 11 seconds and 6.5 kilometres of tailwind to go now for Dries de Bont.
Big harbour area here, lots of cars in the Antwerp port, a lot of bulk as well, and lots of chocolate. You will not be amazed. Lots of chemical companies as well, but also a lot of cocoa beans imported, both in Amsterdam and in Antwerp, for the world-famous Belgian chocolate that has large factories here in the Antwerp area as well. Florian Vermeers, Sander de Pestel, Timo Kielich, Thomas Bonnet, and Quinten Hermans. That is the order of the chasing group here. 15 seconds is what is given at the moment. And like we said a little while ago, the final here in that harbour area is mostly tailwind. We did see this in the women's race as well, just before the last sector. An attack launched by Brit Knaven, the eldest daughter of Servas Knaven, and Natasha Den Oude, a full-time national cyclocross champion herself. But she suffered a flat tyre at 5k from the line, a slow flat, and that ended her chances. And it became a sprint of a small group. So let's see if Dries de Bont can finish it off in a solo move. It would mean that the Alpecin Deceuninck team would have a double win in the Antwerp Port Epic here. They already won the women's race. They had 4 riders in that first group as well, Ian. So they really play their strength in numbers today.
They've certainly dominated both races today. Florian Vermeers skipping turns now, perhaps feeling it. It's been a long, hard race.
Dries de Bont on his own at the front, the former national champion. This is... He's got 6 wins. The first one, like I said, was Halle in Gooichem in 2016. And I worked as a press officer for the very small Verandas Willems team. And he did it exactly like this, defending such a small gap on the competition. 3 years later, he won that same race. Sadly, it doesn't exist anymore, as we have a counter-attack here by Florian Vermeers. Quickly on the wheel is Timo Kielich, Quinten Hermans, Bonnet, and de Pestel. Oh, you can see how sore the legs are of the man of Flanders Baloise.
The problem Florian Vermeers has got is Kielich and Hermans are both very, very good sprinters. So you're not going to be able to just attack and ride away from these 2 guys. See both of them able to close that gap really quickly. And in fact, it was de Pestel who was really struggling to close the gap then. So right now, I feel like this is Dries de Bont's race to win.
He won the Memorial Rik van Steenbergen in 2019. In 2020, a stage win in Étoile de Bessèges in a 2-up sprint with Georg Zimmermann. Then the national title in 2020. And, of course, last year, that fantastic stage victory in the Giro d'Italia. And that group of 3 cunningly, really cunningly winning that sprint and that celebration. Well, look it up on YouTube. It's one of the best celebrations on the finish line. Pure joy there by Dries de Bont, the man from the Alpecin Deceuninck team. He's been part of this team since 2019. He is a 31 from the town of Bornem. And he's on his way to, quite possibly, Ian, his 7th professional win.
It looks that way. There is one very, very small gradient change coming up. A small bridge, it looked like, in the women's race that perhaps could be a launch pad for one of these riders. But there's really not much opportunity left. Perhaps you could dive the wrong side of some of this road furniture to try and gain a gap on that group. But yeah, right now, Dries de Bont riding away with this one. I think our GPS has just taken a turn down to 10 seconds. I'm sure it hasn't come down that quickly.
Oh, look at the suffering there on the face. You can almost feel how sore his legs must be at the moment. 3.2 kilometers, and that is a really, really long way if you are suffering like Dries de Bont is at the moment. He's from the province of Antwerp, from a town just to the south of the city of Antwerp. Here is our sponsor. It's apparently a windmill firm called Wind in Front, Wind voor. but with the flags with the tailwind on one of the gravel sectors, that made for some really fun publicity there for them. Florian Vermeers at the front. He's not really that far. We have Kilich on the wheel, De Pestel, Quinten Hermans there as well, and Thomas Bonnet. That is the situation. And this is, of course, very good for the man at the front. Sander De Pestel, he's trying to give everything. He's also from the region, from this, he's from Sint-Niklaas, which is actually also to the southwest of where we are racing right now. Look at the facial expression there on the face of Dries de Bont, Ian. This is a man on a mission, but a man with a lot of pain.
This is really hurting now, and I think earlier in the race, only probably 10-15 kilometres to go, you'd have said Dries de Bont was hanging on as we see him dive through those bollards there, trying to take the shortest route possible, trying to make that 2 kilometres a little bit shorter. But as I said, he was hanging off the back of the group, swinging ever so slightly, using those slowing down in the corners to catch back up. But yeah, as we predicted, he was going to go on the attack as we see that very small gradient change, that small bridge now. So watch the group behind. This could be an opportunity for one of those other riders to jump across.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like much, but when you're on the verge of collapsing, actually, this could be the last nail in your coffin, proverbially speaking. That is the way we are going. That is the Antwerp Port Authority at Havenhuis. And he's crested the bridge, summited the bridge. Well, almost. They have gotten a little closer, Ian, but not close enough.
It looked like De Pestel was launching something on that small gradient, but yeah, as we see now, they're sitting up once again, and that's in fact an Alpes-Interkonig rider. I think Kielijk on the front of the group, so certainly not bringing the gap down any further. The only thing I would say in the sprint, the Alpes-Interkonig riders have got to be a little bit careful because they can probably close down 6 to 8 seconds perhaps just in the sprint. So De Bont needs to stay on the pedals, some local support there for him. Ex-Belgian champ, they're all going to be wanting this one as you see 850 metres to go now.
He's trying to be as aerodynamic as he possibly can. The 31-year-old, yeah, he feels confident. Alpes-Interkonig, it's a contract year for Dries de Bont, so this will be very welcome. Dries de Bont from the province of Antwerp on his way to the win in Antwerp Port Epic, because it's pretty clear there's no threat from this group anymore with Quinten Hermans, Kielijk, De Pestel, Vermeers and Bonnet. What a fantastic move, a typical Dries de Bont move. We already predicted it, Ian, that he was going to try it after that last gravel sector, and that was exactly the place where he did launch his attack, perfectly protected by his two teammates in that chasing group. It's a double win today for Alpes-Interkonig. Marten Trouwe won the women's race and Dries de Bont wins the men's race. The Antwerp Port Epic 2023, win number 12 for the team and win number 1 for Dries de Bont of this season. And then we're sprinting. Are we going for a free podium for the team? It looks like it's going to be 1, 2 and 3 for Alpes-Interkonig with Quinten Hermans and Timo Kielijk on the podium as well. Well, talk about dominance there. And then the sprint here with, the chasers that never really gotten any closer, despite all the work there of the Israel Premier Tech team. 1, 2 and 3 for Alpes-Interkonig. A dominant race by them.
Absolute masterclass from Alpes-Interkonig there. We knew Hermans and Kielijk would probably be the two fastest in that group. It turned out Kielijk got the better of Hermans in the fight for second, but a 1, 2, 3 for Alpes-Interkonig today. No one else had a reply. Dries de Bont pulled that one off brilliantly. The pain and the cramping now, it all kicks in as soon as you cross that line. But perhaps wasn't the strongest, but tactical magician, isn't he? Able to win these races.
Bravo, Dries de Bont. In typical Dries de Bont fashion, he wins the Antwerp Port Epic. 2 of his teammates on the podium. Look at that face. That is one for the history books. I always wonder, it's like, once you sit down so cramped up, Ian, how do you ever get up again? Sometimes they have these chairs at all the couches after Milan San Remo and everything. And once you sit down after such a hard race, you actually need help getting up.
I was about to say he's going to need a hand getting up from that position on the ground, but yeah, he certainly went all in when he did launch, and that's what you've got to do. You've got to commit to the attack, and he certainly did that. He knew behind. He had two teammates doing an excellent job marking things, and
Don't
yeah,
swear on television, Dries.
describing exactly how hard that was today.
And the 10 well tyres. Looking at them, I think it might even be 30s that he had on that bike. 30
Yeah,
mils.
so normal now is 28, so I'd have thought for this race at least 30, perhaps even 32 millimetres. You see how high the profile of that tyre is, allowing extra kind of room between the top of the tyre and the rim, so eliminating those pinch puncher scenarios that we see so often, or in the past we did.
I think his girlfriend is called Noortje, if I recall correctly.
Here we see the Dateman rider coming in. He did manage to hang on and keep whoever was behind him. A brilliant ride from him today. From, you have to say, probably one of the smaller teams in this race. Getting some good publicity. Gianni Vermeersch congratulating Dries de Bont there.
Could easily also have finished in the top 10, and the 5 riders in the top 10 there. But yeah, 1, 2 and 3 is already, well, up to SD Works standards, I would say.
Yeah, here we see a replay. Dries de Bont just fell to the back of the group and launched with good speed. Almost Florian Vermeersch a little bit boxed in there as Hermans came past to do his turn. And you just can't hesitate in that situation. And it's easier said than done. I know everyone's hurting at this point of the race, but when one of those Alpecin-de-Koning riders went, someone else had to follow it. But that was it. That was the last they saw of him.
What I also find interesting is that he launched this attack when 2 of his teammates were leading that group. So they could immediately cover any moves that were potentially going to happen. And of course, the other riders, they're not crazy either. They know this man. They know that this is his trademark. But having 2 of his teammates there at the front of that group, immediately ready to counter was, yeah, it's a masterclass. It's how it should be done.
Yeah, it just puts that moment of hesitation into those other riders' heads. They don't want to jump across with Hermans or Kielik on the wheel, but that's what you have to do. But they knew if they were to bring Dries de Bont back, it meant Hermans or Kielik would just go over the top once again. So perhaps they were just, yeah, destined to race for second in the end, and Hermans and Kielik cleaned up the podium.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's actually 32 millimeter tyres on that. The results of the Antwerp Port Epic Edition number 6. Dries de Bont, Timo Kielik, Quinten Hermans. 1, 2, 3. Florian Vermeersch, Thomas Bonnet, Sander de Pestel, Niklas Pedersen, Giacomo Nisolo, Sandy Dujardin and Dries van Gestel. Also 3 riders of Total Energie in that top 10. Valuable points when it comes to yeah, the future. Of course, Alpecin-de-Koning, they are World Tour, but Total Energie, they are hunting points to be able to get all these wildcards again for the Grand Tours and the Classics next year. Great result there for the continental rider Pedersen of the Colo Quick team, getting himself to 7th place. Nice result there for the small Danish team, who really have been really active in the race. So good on them, taking optimal advantage of the of the fact that this is a televised race. The races, they don't do that often, Ian. So it's important for the sponsor as well to have the colours shown.
Yeah, really strong from Pedersen. He's almost turning into a bit of an off-road specialist. He was 4th at the Rutland earlier this year, so certainly likes the unpaved sectors within these road races.
Well, we do have more off-road fun for you to come here on GCN Plus, Discovery and Eurosport, and that is Dwars door het Hageland. That is, I think, the 9th of June, something like that, which is also very off-roady. It's actually the 10th. Let's listen to our winner. Yeah, you dominate it with the team, and then 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's absolutely great. It is absolutely a team effort today. And I've been supported by these men. And that made that I could get this attack up until the line.
Ja, een beetje probeert om de sterkste man in koers was vandaag Florian, denk ik.
I think Florian Vermeers was the strongest man in the race.
Ik voelde mezelf ook heel goed.
I did feel really good.
Ja, nul van die mannen heeft een crossgeschiedenis en ik niet.
But most of these guys have a history in cyclocross and I don't.
En ik dacht dat ook van mijn eigen, want ik moest altijd 10 meter toerijden in elke bocht.
Yeah, and I was just not confident on gravel, so after every turn I had to close that gap.
Gewoon ver kom vandaag. Moet er gewoon van weg geraken.
And I knew that I had a chance, but I just had to attack and get away from them. And of course they let Florian close the gap and let him do most of the work. I tried early in the race to make life difficult for Florian.
En ja, dan heb ik geprobeerd om met een goede pijl.
And then I tried with one big rocket, with one big arrow to put pressure on it. And when they close that gap, it's up to Quinten and Timo, and they already showed that they could finish it off anyway. So this is absolutely a grand team effort. So thank you, team. Thank you, Albers in de Koning.
De Giro voelt geweldig goed, denk ik. Ik zie het aan jou dat je er echt van geniet.
Ja, het was ook probleem. Ben eigenlijk al een heel jaar naar mijn eigen gevoel toch op een heel goed niveau aan het rondrijden.
Yeah, I think I'm at a pretty good level all year this year, but I had some crashes in the spring classics while my legs were really good. So always the race situation falling just the wrong way.
Ja, voor mij moeten soms de kaarten gewoon een keer goed vallen.
But for me, it's just like the cards needs to be, it just needs to be right for one time, and I know what to do then. But yeah, these cards didn't really fall into my favor this year up until now.
Did you feel that you could win at the 5K when you went away?
I think these last 5K, I think they were the hardest of my career. Really, I was struggling. I was even like, I was talking to myself in the last 5K like, you cannot quit because the guys in front, in the back, they need to keep pushing. Because then, if they catch you back, you give them the victory. So I was actually pushing not only for myself but also for the guys in the back. And also, Christophe was yelling in my ear like, "Don't give up." And that was the only thing that kept me straight because I was really giving in at a certain moment, and I was seeing to my computer the watts dropping and dropping. I said, and then the last turn at 3K to go was backwind and saved my life. Because if it was headwind until the finish, I wouldn't have made it, I think.
Congrats with your win. Thanks.
Thanks, Dries, for just keeping that swear word in for our viewers. One of the penthouses here, these are pretty expensive apartments. There's a lot of famous Flemish TV personalities living here, actually, I've been told. Talking about cyclocross, yeah, Dries de Bond said all these guys, they have that cyclocross experience. In every turn, I had to make up a few meters. And we could see that. We could see that he was not confident on the gravel and always taking a little bit of distance to ride his own lines or be more secure than in a group. How did that come across for you?
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that was one of the problems Florian Vermeers had as well, up against those cross riders in Timo Kielik. Just going into the corners, not confident to carry the same speed through the corners as perhaps the other riders, and it leads to these little gaps, and those little gaps add up after every single corner.
Let's do the highlights. We had a breakaway of 2 Danish riders, Frederik Mouf and Bjorn Sørensen. One from Australia, Kane Richards from the ARA Skip Capital team, and Jacob Scott from Bolton Equities Black Spoke, the man from the north west of England, from Oldham. Those 4 riders were caught, with Sørensen being the last one. And then already on the attack, Dries de Bond. He had an eye for it. He said that he wanted to stay away from the group and not do the gravel in the group, and that's exactly what he did. Sander de Pestel, the man from the region, was the first to join him, and the second one was the Frenchman Thomas Bonnet. And then 3 other riders bridged across, including the winner of last year's race, Florian Vermeers, in the red and teal of Lotto Destiny, and 2 teammates for Dries de Bond with Timo Kielich and Quinten Hermans. And then at 9 kilometers from the line, just after the last cobbled and unpaved sector, we had the typical Dries de Bond attack. And like he said in his post-race interview, it was down to the guys in that group behind him, Quinten Hermans and Timo Kielich, to protect it. And he said, well, this was the hardest 5 kilometers I ever did in my career, and thanks to the tailwind, I made it. And the fact that they had 1, 2 and 3 was the testament to the fact that this was an absolute team effort, because we also saw a very active Gianni Vermeers. We also saw Sam Gaze very active at the front, and also today in the team, Emile Verstringen, the young cyclocross rider, and Jonas Rickaert. But a great win for him, 7th in his career and the 12th of the season for the Alpecin de Koning team. And then this sprint for 2nd and 3rd. And that's what Dries de Bond said as well. You know, if the guys would catch me, it would be up to Timo and Quinten to finish it off in a sprint. And it's exactly what they did. And now it's 3 guys of the same team on the podium. This is Niklas Pedersen. You already mentioned him from the Rutland Classic, already doing a grand performance there as well. And Nisolo in that group, as is Nicholas Sikowski, the Canadian rider of the Q36.5 team. But one dirty skin suit there for Dries de Bond and Alpecin de Koning, mentioning the sponsor and the team multiple times. It's a contract year, like I mentioned, for Dries de Bond. He's 31, so this will help in the negotiations, especially after the Spring Classic season that he had. He already alluded to it himself. A lot of crashes, a lot of bad luck, and always the race situation not really falling to his favour. And this was the first time it did this year, and it was a victorious one. Little bunny hop there on the line for Quinten Hermans. Cyclocross guys will be cyclocross guys, won't they?
Yeah, a little wheelie from Quinten Hermans there with delight. That was his celebration for the day. But Kielich, how fast is he in the sprint? In a tailwind sprint, the speed he took, and to come round a guy like Hermans and Florian Vermeers, it just shows how fast he is on the road. And I'm sure this is the direction he wants to go in, winning these classics eventually. Wouldn't rule that out with that kind of finish.
He's 24. But from what we've seen so far, adding another podium to his already impressive tally this year, Timo Kielich. So, remember that name. You will hear it much more often. Yeah, Quinten Hermans, of course, he hopes to go to the Tour de France again this year. Dries de Bond might as well. He's not done the Giro, so he might be part of that Tour de France team. Jasper Philipsen, of course, Mathieu van der Poel, Jonas Rickaert. Well, there's already 5 riders that I do expect in that Tour de France team of 8 for Alpecin de Koning. They did find some clean Callas jerseys there for the riders on the podium. And there we go with our podium. Doesn't happen all that much, 3 of the same team on the podium. In women's cycling, we've gotten used to an SD Works 1 and 2, but a 1, 2, 3 is not all that common, Ian.
No, that's really, really rare in men's cycling. But they were the standout team today, I would say. But yeah, along with Total Energy, Israel Premier Tech, there were some very good riders in this race, as we saw in that final group of 6. But yeah, they proved the 3 best on the day.
Looks like they got a goodie bag with a leak in it. Look at that. I think there were actually leaks in it. And a windmill with a cobble windmill. I bet you don't have that in your trophy cabinet.
No, it's always good to get interesting trophies rather than, yet another medal.
Let's see at the goodie bag. Oh, the camera has to pan out a little bit more. It looks like there were leaks in that little crate there. But of course, yeah, one of the big sponsors here is a company in wind energy. So yeah, we get we get a wind energy cobble for Dries de Bond and his teammates. I don't think it's actually ugly. I think it's nice.
No, you'll probably find it's used as a doorstop or something.
Very pragmatic. Am I right or am I right? There's leeks in that basket. Probably even a cauliflower.
Just a little veg box for them to take
A
home.
little veggie box, yeah. Get yourself like a little cauliflower bhaji or something. And some leek soup or whatever. Well, our podium for today on the 5th race of the Lotto Cycling Cup. We're halfway. The next one is going to be the Van Merkstein Fences Classic, a race that previously known as the Grand Prix Marcel Kind. And then we continue with Dwars door het Hageland, another off-road race, the Elfstedenronde in Bruges. And then later in June, Circuit Franco-België en Kampioenschap van Vlaanderen. And that is the rest of the Lotto Cycling Cup races that you will be able to watch here. For now, we will say goodbye to you, Ian Field and myself, José Bain. We will be back on Friday for the Tour of Norway. Completely different landscapes, but hopefully exciting races, just like we saw today. Well, the veg does go home.
One less thing do you have to put on the shopping list this week?
That's true, and veg is pretty expensive at the moment, Ian, so it does save a little bit on the budget. Well, we have done the podium ceremony. Our leader in the Lotto Cycling Cup was actually racing in Germany today, Milan Mente, so he's not on the podium to as the leader in the Lotto Cycling Cup. So that will be for another day. Well, an exciting race, Ian, with a lot of gravel and cobbles and an absolutely superior team effort there by the Alpecin, the Koning team. Timo Kielich moving up to second in that Lotto Cycling Cup overall. But like I said, Milan Menten still the leader after 5 races. 5 races done, 5 still to go. And this man is probably the most combative rider. The man from the region, Sander de Pestel. And some flowers for him. Not a veg basket. I think we run out of veg there. No more cauliflowers for Sander. Thanks for watching this Antwerp Port Epic 2023. And yeah, we'll see you again on Friday, Ian. Looking forward to it.